If you ask most Gen Zs if they're going to go to college and go get a $60,000 a year job, and most of them are going to say no. Why don't I go search for an existing business to buy instead? There's this entire entrepreneurship through acquisition community. And what's happening because of that is franchising is having a moment. I wasn't passionate about power washing. I am passionate about helping people become business owners. And they're like, Aaron, we love what you've done here. We want to put you on track for the leadership role. We'll give you a title with the word president in it. We'll double your salary. I would have made close to $1 million a year if I stayed on with that role, basically to franchise a business that they were buying.
Yep.
And I said, no. We took the brand to market end of February of 2023. We signed up our first franchisee in March of 2023, our second franchisee in May of 2023. We have now signed up 68 franchise owners that own 235 territories in 29 states.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. It was a brief meet that we got to do in Nashville at the Aspire event, and we were trying to coordinate, and finally we were able to make this happen. So I'm really excited, and thank you for coming out to the studio, and we get to dive on in. I mean, you're in an industry that I obviously am very in love with and see the extreme value. And your story I like so much because of how you pivoted from a world that I also started in that agency world. You on the entertainment side, I was on the sports side. And so I read something that you had said once, and I laughed at how you said franchising found you.
Yeah.
But when you started your career, franchising was just not even a thing in your life.
No.
So what kind of led you to the business management side of entertainment?
Yeah. So have you ever seen Entourage?
Of course.
I thought I wanted to be Ari Gold when I was in college. So I went down to the agency world, worked in kind of that space, started at the bottom, worked on desks, and then eventually started working with Academy Award winning and nominated actors, writers, and directors on their teams, helping them find work. And I joke, but you know, there's a lot of insanity in that industry, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. And, you know, I looked at myself after about 5 years in that space and said, is this something I want to do for the rest of my life? And the people I was working for, I didn't really want anything that they had. When I had gotten the second divorce paperwork that I needed to summarize for my second boss, I was like, okay, I'm out. And kind of got into like a dark place. I was like, this is not where I want to be. And
but when you said there's nothing that they had that you wanted, obviously, the initial instinct is they have a lot of money, right?
Yeah,
because agents and Hollywood, big money.
Yeah, totally.
So you had to look out beyond the materialistic side.
Yeah.
You saw the life.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important point to make. Like, if I'm going to do something and I'm going to make good money, I want the life that I can enjoy and spend it on. And they basically lived and breathed that work that they were doing to the point where if they got a call at midnight and then they didn't answer it, they might worry that agent or that actor might go work for another agent. And so they're constantly doing that. And it's very hard to scale because it's all like super tight relationships with these agents and their clients. And I just didn't want that. I wanted to have a house and young kids, and, you know, living in Los Angeles, it's hard to have like land. And I was like, I see myself renting for the next till I'm 40. And I was like, this is not something I'm looking for. And wealth for me is multifaceted. It's not just making money. It's what am I doing with my time, and am I enjoying my time, and am I enjoying the people I'm spending my time with? So I just didn't see that as a path.
Sure. So how does that all, I mean, because as you know, I was a sports agent and had a very similar epiphany earlier, but and sooner. And I had this thrust into a payroll business, ADP, is where I got a quick job to make some money. And you had a similar thrust into a different, not a service industry, but not payroll. I mean, obviously it was ChemDry.
Yep.
Which very different than being an agent.
Yeah, going from Hollywood to carpet cleaning is a pretty big jump. But, you know, I talked to a buddy of mine, and he was like, hey, you should get into franchise development. And I was like, well, it's franchise development. And I, like probably many people who might either be listening to this or like they think franchise and they think of McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Wendy's, like legacy fast food. And so that's what I thought. I'm like, I don't really want to like develop McDonald's locations. And he goes, no, there's this whole world. Like, I didn't know 1-800-GOT-JUNK was a franchise. I didn't know 2 Men in a Truck was a franchise. I didn't know Service Master was a franchise. But these are like, I didn't know Mr. Rooter was a franchise. These are brands that I knew. And so really when I started digging into it, I'm like, okay, wait, I get to help people become business owners? Like that's a noble thing for me.
Yeah.
And so I was excited about it, and I emailed his boss every 3 weeks for 6 months until he hired me.
Oh, really? So there wasn't even an opening?
No, there was not an opening.
And so why did you pick that company, ChemDry? Because now I thought that was an opportunity you walked into. So knowing that you were pleasantly persistent and did the I'm going to keep knocking on the door till you open it, why them over any other of the brands you just mentioned? Obviously, it seemed like you wanted to stay away from the food space, so you were really going into that more service-based. But why ChemDry? Like, what was the appeal specifically? Was it just your buddy, or was...
So I think that relationships, you've talked about this a lot in your content, relationships are everything, and the more you can be around someone that you trust or around people that you trust, I think the better chance you have in general for success. And I knew how well he was doing, and I knew I'm really good at like looking at someone, learning exactly what they do, and then after a while iterating and finding a way to do it better. And so I knew that I could work alongside him and have a higher chance of success than just like going and trying to work at another. And I knew, how well he was doing financially and how many units he was awarding in that brand. And I also knew the brand because I grew up in California, and there's hundreds of ChemDrys all up and down California.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I like how you explain that, because I think as we grow up, we forget that emulating and learning from watching others is how we do it as children.
Right.
Like if you think about a child and parents, you teach children to do everything, and they emulate their parents and peers and those that are showing how to accomplish something. And then we get to an adult and we feel like that's not how you're supposed to do it anymore. That you're supposed to just instantly be able to do it on your own. Where the best way to do it is to learn from a mentor, a employer, a partner, somebody you aspire to be like. So being able to identify that and say, okay, if I can observe and be around this buddy of yours, I can duplicate their results and hopefully improve them because I'm using them as the floor.
Right. So and that's exactly what I did. And so I emailed his boss. He didn't respond to me till I think email response? Number 7. Not even one. Yeah, not even one response.
Do you remember what your first email said?
Something like, hey, blah, blah, this is my name. I know your employee. I know he's doing really well. I mentioned something personal about him and the impressive accolades that he has, and said I think I can add value to his team and potentially double the output that they're currently doing. And then I just followed up every 3 weeks. And then I saw on Facebook that one of the other directors had left the company. This is a funny story. So I called my friend, and I sent another email. That was email number 7. And I called my friend and I was like, hey, like, how do I get on with Doug? Like, what do I have to do? And he goes, oh, Aaron, they're like, they want someone who has franchise experience. Selling franchises is completely different. And I was like, Brett, what do they pay you to do at that company? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what do they pay you to do?
Yeah. What's your job?
What's your job? And he goes, well, I mean, I sell franchises. I'm like, no, they pay you to close deals. So close the deal. Get me a meeting.
Yeah.
I'll just let me get in front of him. And so the next day, it was like Tuesday at 11, and he's like, Aaron, what are you doing right now? And like, I had off that day, and he's like, Doug wants to meet with you. Can you be here in an hour and a half? And I put on a suit, and I was like, sure can. And I drove down there and basically got into kind of the process. And a few months later, I was hired.
Did he ever acknowledge your emails, or did he even see them?
He said that he did acknowledge. He said that he knew that by sending those emails that I was persistent and good at sales. So I was like,
which is important, because I think to a lot of people, and I talk about how I've accomplished so many things by just being a pain in the ass or pleasantly persistent.
Yeah.
Right? And I use Friday to do that. And so often I get, well, I understand the first email, but then what? Like, how do you continue that dialogue? And if they're not answering, why are you still doing it? And I think what you just illustrated is the point, which is they are seeing them.
Yeah.
They're seeing the name, even if they're not even reading emails 2 through 20, right? Or answering the phone. But the fact that you are being persistent, it's not a matter of if the opportunity will be there. You want to be present. You want to be there. So when that day comes up, they go, oh my gosh, Aaron keeps bugging me and this man won't stop. We should probably talk to him because I don't want him emailing me for the next 2 years.
Yeah, which I would have done.
Which you would have done.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you're going to win.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And so I think that is, I love that because that is something that I pride myself on doing because I know the value. And that's why I find it fun. That's why I love your story because I'm like, we basically have a very similar journey path from something to something and how we accomplish it. And that relentlessness will continue to open doors, and you will be lucky so much more often than those who are not doing those things.
Correct.
And they'll say, oh, Aaron's just lucky. And it's like, no, you created that luck.
Right. I just kept going at it.
Eventually, the director leaves, and there's a spot. And eventually, you'll talk somebody into giving you the shot.
Yeah, 100%.
So you get the job.
So I got the job, and I came in. I didn't know anything about selling franchises. I did exactly what I just told you. I mirrored what they were doing. Learned the whole process. We sold our first franchise, or I sold my first franchise about 4 months in. And then in the next 3 years, I added 200 locations to that business. And we became the biggest carpet cleaning company in the world while I was there.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I mean, there was a lot of people involved, but we were able to find some really good owners and help them get their businesses started. That company was purchased by a large restoration company that wanted to get into like building kind of a franchise portfolio of service brands, but didn't have any experience really in franchising. Their expertise was restoration. So they had 3 kind of like brands that they would refer some work to, but it wasn't really scaling. So we merged in 2019. We became 5 brands. Then they bought a brand called the Patch Boys, which was a drywall repair brand. At the time, it was first to market. Well, I guess it was always first to market in the drywall repair space. So very simple, just holes in walls.
Yep.
That brand had about 98 locations, 40 franchisees at the time, and I was the first full-time employee in that acquisition. So there wasn't a team didn't come with anything like that. So
they moved you from your ChemDry over to that brand.
Yep.
Patch Boys?
Patch Boys. And we rebuilt the whole company. I mean, we hired a brand president, we got business coaches, we built a training program, we did a brand refresh. But most importantly, we went out and we listened to the franchisees and we asked them what they needed from us. And then we built systems around everything they needed. And the first franchisee that we launched, and this was all happening in COVID. It was June of 2020 when the acquisition happened. So like it was nuts. And then
they still closed at that time and didn't stall.
Yeah, the owner of the company that I worked for was he shot from the hip and he kind of it's pretty interesting. So we signed up our first franchisee. He launched at the end of 2020. And with the systems that we had built, he was profitable in his first month and had no experience in drywall repair, had a skilled laborer hired prior to going to training. Like it was awesome. Like I knew what we had built, what worked. So from October of 2020 to October of 2022, I added 223 locations to that business in 2 years.
And were you overseeing the whole country, or were you just in a certain geographical?
I oversaw the whole country. So it was just me over kind of doing development, and then the brand president that we hired kind of oversaw operations and the team that we built on operations. But him and I were like linked. Like we would talk multiple times a day just to try to make sure we were doing it the right way. And what I'm super proud of is all those franchisees opened that we signed up. So when I left, we were signing up a new franchisee every 7 or so days. And then every 7 weeks, we were training 6 to 7 franchise groups across the country. So we sold out the whole country, became the biggest drywall repair company in the world. And then we had also scaled Belfour to 12 brands. So from kind of the 3 when I got involved to 12, 4,700 locations, 55 countries across 12 different industries, verticals in the home service space. And they were buying a 13th brand. And they're like, Aaron, we love what you've done here. We want to put you on track for kind of a leadership role. We'll give you a title with the word president in it. We'll double your salary. I would have made close to $1 million a year if I stayed on with that role, basically to franchise a business that they were buying.
Yep.
And I said, no, I can do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lunatic entrepreneur, I turned it down. I went across the country and reached out to everyone I knew to find a business. that I could turn into a franchise. So non-franchise that I could take their systems and replicate them.
How many, and what size were you trying to identify? Like, what were you looking for from a size perspective?
Ideally, a minimum of $1 million in revenue,
Sure.
with at least a 20% profit margin in the residential commercial services space. I had a full checklist of things that I was looking for.
Did you ever read Checklist Manifesto?
Mm-mm.
It's a great book.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm obsessed with checklists.
Yeah,
it was like...
So am I. After reading, years and years and years ago, one of my mentors said, read Checklist Manifesto. So I did, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my Audible list. But yeah, so, I wanted something that was scalable, high margins for franchisees, unskilled labor, recession resistant / proof, niche business. I had like this whole checklist. And after looking at 24 businesses, roofing, HVAC, plumbing, solar, tree care, lawn care, like Rolling Suds was the only one that checked off all of those boxes on the list. And first and foremost, the founders of Rolling Suds, 34-year-old power washing company, they're wonderful. They built a great business. At the time, it was doing over $2.2 million.
Were they actively selling, or did you go to them and bring an opportunity on their desk?
So they had franchised, meaning they had paid someone a lot of money to create them the franchise documents. But fortunately, they realized, hey, I don't know anything about this, and it's going to take away from my $2 million power washing business. Why don't I find a franchisor who knows how to do this, that we can make sure that we do it the right way, and find franchisees and make sure they get supported properly. And so they were evaluating a bunch of different options. I was evaluating a bunch of different options. We met in September of 2022, and we immediately hit it off. And so we took basically their one location business that they kept running and they continue to own. We created a different business, which I kind of call this deal structure franchise through acquisition, which is a completely different business. I raise capital, I build the team, and then they get upside in this business. And they help basically make sure that there's a sufficient knowledge transfer to franchisees from a power washing perspective.
Do they pay the royalty?
They do not. So the
Dev fee?
No, they didn't pay anything.
Nothing.
They did. I did give them the opportunity to invest alongside me. So me and them are the biggest investors in the franchise business.
And they did participate.
And they did.
Okay.
Yeah. So super aligned incentive-wise. And then I sought out minority investors who could provide guidance that have done this before, that were like mentors, or that still are mentors. So we finalized the transaction in January of 2023. We took the brand to market end of February of 2023. We signed up our first franchisee in March of 2023, our second franchisee in May of 2023. We have now signed up 68 franchise owners that own 235 territories in 29 states. We turn away more owners than we bring in.
I have very important.
It's very important.
Yeah. A lesson that most franchisors either don't learn or learn too late. And everyone tells you, and it's the one thing that you hear. But if you're good in sales, it goes in one ear and out the other. Totally. Until you learn. So
I did the franchise development myself up until April of 2024, and I just was hiring a new operations person approximately every 2 weeks. So it was crazy. I now have a sales team that runs that. But the purpose of doing that was to make sure that the proper expectations were set and that I was kind of walking them through that process. So about the first 50 or so franchise owners I signed up.
Really quick, what exactly does Rolling Suds do?
Residential and commercial power washing.
But like elaborate, because some people may not. Some people may hear that and go, well, "Okay, but I don't power wash my home very often. So what? Or is it my driveway? Is it my car? Is it the house, the side paneling of my home? And what? How often do homeowners and commercial businesses need this?
So on the residential side, it's going to be anything outside. So driveways, decks, sidewalks, fences, roofs, siding, stucco, chimneys, brick.
And is this a regular thing that when people who realize they need to do it, does it now become a scheduled maintenance, or is it, okay, I'll do it once every blank?
Yeah, so on the residential side, it depends on where you're at in the country. For example, Florida needs to do it at least probably twice a year. Tennessee's probably once a year. In Pennsylvania, where this business was founded, it's on average every two years or so.
Sure.
It depends on the climate and where you're at. We've got a bunch of franchisees in California. They do a ton of roofs because the tile roofs and stuff like that get build up on them. So that's
what would be like the value, like to the consumer, not the franchisee, but I'm a homeowner, right?
Yep.
What is the
value proposition?
Yeah, why do I'm not thinking about power washing my home, and now you're going to tell me the reason you need to think about it is like what would be that to our, because everyone probably has some home or business, and so okay, why do I?
Yeah, so it's the preservation of your property. Like it's in a lot of markets, there's mold, there's mildew. What we're seeing out here in California, particularly, is insurance companies are dropping homeowners if they've got stuff on their roof. So it's just preservation of your most valuable asset. Yeah. Just the same reason you would clean the inside of your home and make sure that like stuff doesn't build up is why you would clean the outside of your home. And also just making sure your house looks nice. Sure. If you have rental properties and you try to take your house to go and rent it and it looks dirty on the outside, you're not going to get as high of a rental value. So there's like a housing component attached to this. But really where the business model gets interesting is on the commercial side. So pretty much if it's outside and it's a structure, we can clean it. So we've done water towers, 135-foot water towers. We do buildings like yours here, so office buildings. We do
including the windows.
Yeah, we rinse them down. We partner with window washing professionals to actually do like the squeegeeing of the windows. But our process for power washing is much faster and more efficient than anyone else. It's kind of a proprietary technology and it's more efficient. So we try to get in, do the cleaning. That's what we specialize in, and then partner our customers up with window cleaning professionals that's what they focus on. But I mean, a fast food restaurant, for example, like it's in their FDD that they have to clean their units quarterly. Driveways, sidewalks, the building, potentially the roof. And so that's a built-in recurring revenue source for our franchisees to go after, and that's just one use case.
Yeah, you get one and it's recurring, and now you have a subscription model.
Right. So like we've bid on huge jobs, which are like overpasses. We just did the Superdome in New Orleans. So we were literally up on the top of the Superdome, making it white, getting it ready for the Super Bowl. We did the Cotton Bowl as well. Before that game.
Have you gone up on the roof yet?
I've not. No.
Just check.
No, you don't want me up there. Too big of a liability. So anyways, like we're all across the country doing these big jobs that are essentially not being done, at least not sophisticated to scale in the way we're doing it. And, we're the biggest power washing brand in the U.S. now, and we're able to do these jobs faster and more efficiently, which is appealing to a commercial customer. So our franchisees are sometimes 60 to 70% commercial business.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which is more higher ticket, less customer. Like it's a better business.
So I was never going to franchise, right?
Yeah.
Because I started Everbowl and it was never going to happen.
Right.
I used to say emphatically to everybody, not happening, no way. Don't want to do it. Winners and losers, too much headache, different business.
Yeah.
I'm in this business. I don't want to be in that business because
it's a
for a lot of people who don't understand, it's like whether it's power washing or it's acai bowls, when you own and operate stores, you're an operator. When you're a franchisor, you're a support company.
Right.
Your customer changes. I had to explain this to my team. It's like the person who comes in to buy a bowl was my customer when I owned the store.
Right.
The franchisee who owns the business is my customer when I'm a franchisor.
Correct.
It is a very different business. However, one of the epiphanies that I had, and one of the reasons that I changed and pivoted to franchising is, and you said it early on, by being a franchisor, you are empowering people to become business owners.
Yeah.
You are giving them the thing that they won't have the resources for, and it changes the probability of success from a 90% failure rate to over a 70% success rate.
Yeah,
so
it's
it
crazy.
is a massive difference in the likelihood of them having a viable, profitable business.
Yeah.
And achieve what most entrepreneurs want.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I'm starting to understand the appeal and why. And so you obviously learned that from a different angle because you were in that side. So as you've been doing this and you are helping so many, even before your own brand, but when you were helping back with ChemDry or Patch Bros, what have you seen or learned kind of from now being on the franchisor side as a result of helping all of these business owners create that? What have you kind of seen that has changed your perspective, or maybe it hasn't, and that's just been the direction, but like, what do you feel from a franchise, total, like overarching market side, why franchise? Like, I can give the answer. I sell franchises, you sell franchises, but you also would buy a franchise.
Yeah.
And so would I.
Yeah.
Because of those things. But what do you feel like the average person out there who's looking at and exploring, do I start my own franchise? Like, what, in addition to the support, in addition to all that, like, what have you felt and learned that you may think could help sway them?
Yeah. So I think what we're seeing in today that we weren't seeing, let's say 7-8 years ago when I got into franchising, is there is in my generation and in your generation and the generation below,
we're the same generation.
Yeah, you and I are the same generation. Our generation and the one below, I should have said. So
I'm not too old yet.
Yeah. So you're seeing this desire for true ownership. Like if you ask most Gen Zs if they're going to go to college and go get a $60,000 a year job and go into debt for, like, most of them are going to say no. It's the most entrepreneurial generation in like a long time.
And Gen Z is what? Gen Z would be
like 28 and younger.
28 and younger. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1998, kind of.
Roughly. Yep. Exactly. Maybe 27. I mean, it's
right around there.
But in their late 20s is the highest. And they don't want to go work for someone else. It's the most. They're calling it the tool belt generation. And I think you're seeing in our generation as well, like it used to be go get an MBA, go work at an investment company, go work at a private equity, go work at a hedge fund, and then start retire with like small pieces of all. And now what you're seeing is even those people are saying, wait, if I'm going to go get an MBA and go into all this debt, why don't I go search for an existing business to buy instead? And so there's this entire entrepreneurship through acquisition community on Twitter.
When you say through acquisition, though, you are separating out the
franchise.
Yes, I was going to say that. There is, yes. Okay.
Yep. So I'm separating it out because there's there's books that have been written, buy then build. And there's this.
And my good friend Cody Sanchez screams this at the top of her lungs.
Yeah. Cody and I have become friends as well because of the same thing. People are coming in, buying boring businesses. And what's happening because of that is franchising is having a moment in a way that hasn't happened in a long time. Because what these people will do that follow Cody, they follow Alex Hormozi, they follow you, and they say, okay, I'm going to spend 18 to 24 months trying to find this perfect HVAC business that's doing between $500,000 and $1.5 million in profit. I'm going to get an SBA loan. I'm going to personally guarantee it. If it goes above 1.5 million, they're competing with private equity. Private equity is coming downstream and buying $1 million and 750,000 EBITDA businesses. And so there's all of this demand and very little supply because a lot of these businesses of people retiring are not underwritable by a bank. Like they're the business. And to the credit of the business that I franchised, like Brian Jr., which is Brian Sr.'s son, Brian Sr. started it. He's very much the sales guy and still runs it, but Brian Jr. was able to professionalize the operations in a way that allowed us to franchise it. But it was not able to be traded at what he would want to sell it for because it wasn't built to sell. And so the opportunity cost associated with spending 18 months searching for this perfect business, raising a search fund, giving away equity and burning cash, like burning time, a lot of those people are saying, gosh, there's not an opportunity out here for me. Why don't I look at franchise businesses?
Yep.
And at the same time, the franchising industry, there's a generation change happening. Our generation is coming into the leadership roles, and the 60-year-old generation is retiring from the franchise industry. And a couple of those, some of the most respected people in the franchise industry are on my board, and they want to make sure that the next generation of franchisors and franchise professionals is able to continue carrying it. So you have these two things happening in concert with one another. And so the right franchise brands now have an opportunity to capitalize on this supply-demand issue.
Right.
And so the reason that people are buying existing businesses is they want less risk. They want proven systems. They want cash flow built in. They want a quick ramp. They want to be able to deploy cash and scale. Like those are all things that you can also do in a franchise business. Now, it could be argued that because there's no cash flow here and they're starting from scratch, that it's more risky. It could also be argued that taking on 1.5 million times 3 times multiple on an SBA loan is also more risky because you don't know anything about an HVAC business.
Well, and I think risk aside, because I think that's an important component, but also it's a ROI side. Because
Correct.
To your point, if I buy an existing business that's doing $500,000 in EBITDA that I pay $1.5 million for, my cash on cash will be 3 years, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Without any learning curve, hopefully shorter if I can improve the business.
Yep.
But I am paying a premium for that compared to buying an existing, a brand new franchise with an existing brand, deploying $500,000. Let's just use that number, and it might not do $500,000 year one. So you'll say, well, look, I'm better off here, but you haven't deployed $1.5 million yet. So you can take that same extra $1 million and even open 3 of those boxes and now have 3 businesses for the price of 1 in your territory or in that geographic region or even across multiple regions. And with proven systems and scale, be in a position by year 3 to have 3 businesses doing EBITDA of $500,000 versus 1 and still only have deployed the same $1.5 million.
Exactly. And they have a support group of people that are all doing the same thing, either at the same time or have farther ahead of them, or they're able to help people. And that community is a piece that you just simply don't get when you buy an existing business. You're 100% dependent upon the owner and the owner's team to train you on that business.
The transfer of knowledge is so imperative when you buy.
It's so imperative. And you hear people talk about like, one of the hardest times in a business is like that 1 to 3 to 1 to 4 million in revenue time span, because you only have so much money to invest in a team. So if you buy a business that's doing 3 million with 1.2, like you still have to get it from 3 to 10. And the amount of capital that's going to need to go into hiring the right people to get it there is extensive. So anyways, a lot of people don't think about that, but most of our franchisees have come from this space over here.
Sure.
Because they're seeing that opportunity to join a growing brand, get the upside. So to come back to your question, you get a lot of what you get from buying an existing business, just with less risk, depending on finding the right brand, and you get a community and you're able to scale faster. And that's what our franchisees are seeing. And, it's like buying into a stock that's going like this. Like you're going to have more upside if the business is scaling like that. If you can get in with a brand like Everbowl or like Rolling Suds early before it gets sold to someone else, and in 3 years now we're at 500-600 units, you've now captured all of that upside and value creation from all these other franchisees who are scaling their businesses in the other 49 states.
That's right.
Now, the key to franchising is finding the right brand and evaluating it in a way where you're like, okay, I believe in the leadership team. I believe in what you're doing, because that's the most important thing. Like, I would argue, like, for your first business, it's not necessary to like follow your passion. You can, but find something that you feel like you could be good at, right? Like we're a big B2B business. So if we get a med device salesperson or someone who's used to doing B2B sales, it's like, okay, well, you can take that exact skill set and transfer it over. Power washing is potentially easier to sell than surgical equipment.
When you say follow your passion, and I don't know, see, I hear that all the time. And I agree with what you just said, but I disagree with what you just said at the same time. And what I mean is my passion, if you said, Jeff, what are your passions, right? Outside of like business, right? It's sports. It's like those, right. I can go make a career in the sports world, but it wouldn't be at the wealth creation I want or the lifestyle I want to that point, right? So is my passion restaurants? Absolutely not. Is my passion construction? No. I found a passion in building and scaling business, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you can find a passion in part of what you're doing. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, the passion could be entrepreneurship.
Yes,
because
100%.
Whether it's power washing or acai bowls or McDonald's, we're all in the same business. It's business. Business is business. The foundational principles for Microsoft, Everbowl, Rolling Suds is the same. And so if you have a passion for business and entrepreneurship and leadership and development, that doesn't matter what
totally
the vehicle is that you're doing. You got to find the passion in the thing you're trying to accomplish. If your passion is acai bowls and that's why you're doing Everbowl, that's great.
Right.
But that doesn't make you prepared yet to be an entrepreneur.
Right. And it's the same with me. Like I wasn't passionate about power washing. I am passionate about helping people become business owners. And that could be through power washing. It could be through other brands that I end up launching in the future. But what I've become obsessed with is just owning a business and scaling a business and growing teams. And I think that if someone is thinking about making the jump, leaving their job, going to own a business, like get into something that you feel like you can you will enjoy solving the problems that business presents, because business is all about solving problems, and that you have the skill sets necessary to solve those problems, and then find either a good business to buy or a good franchise where you believe in the team and you believe in the franchisees and you think you could be successful. And I think that's really what it's all about. So that's kind of my overall case for franchising.
Well, and I think you kind of hit on a few things, right? Because I don't believe, and this, a lot of people don't agree with me, but I don't believe entrepreneurship's for most people.
Yeah,
I think that
I agree.
We're in this trend where you are, like you just said, this Gen Z doesn't want to work for anyone. They want to do their own thing. The sad thing for a lot of them is they're going to have wealth creation problems.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be older in the workforce with a resume that is hard to hire.
Yep.
And I try to explain this to my daughter because, she's 19 and she's thinking about business. I'm like, honey, I'm not very employable.
Yeah.
And she's like, but Dad, you've started and sold so many companies and you're a great but you understand that if I give my resume to somebody and they see founder, founder, they're going to say, when are you going to leave me to go start your next thing?
Right,
you just need money right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not, right? They know that I don't want to work for you and I'm not a good employee.
Right.
So it's not good on your resume to show if you need a job and you go back to the workforce from ownership, it's a hard thing for an employer. I would be hesitant to hire somebody from an ownership level who now they would have to be able to sell me on what is the transition, or am I a transitionary job?
Right.
Till they recoup some capital and jump into their next venture, because that seems to be their passion. So if you are not passionate about business, I always implore people, entrepreneurship is a last resort. And what I mean by that is, if you can find something you love and get paid very well, like you were going to get $1 million to go build this next brand, that's a hell of a nice life.
Totally. 100%.
You don't have any of the risk that you have with ownership. You have the beautiful quality of life because it's someone else's problem when you go home.
Right.
You're making more money than most people make. Most doctors and MBAs and lawyers don't make $1 million a year. So you can make ridiculous money working for people and you can join. Now, if you're going to do an entrepreneurship and you say, well, Jeff, I believe I can and I want to give it a go. Now it's like a statistics, right? Let's use data.
Yeah.
And a franchise, 70% plus success rate. Starting my own, 90% failure rate. Acquire a business, much higher success rate, more capital required. So where do you fit in that trifecta, that triangle, right? And so I really try to make sure that entrepreneurs and people who are thinking about it understand that, yes, there is the allure, and if you feel that you have to do it, I recommend you do it, and I am the first one to tell you go do it.
Yeah.
But I would tell you it's because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
And then you'll be successful.
Yep.
Because you realize that that's who you are.
Yep.
It's like I can't be a very good doctor because I don't love medicine. I don't have those skills. So I would be a mediocre doctor.
Right.
And so you don't want to be a mediocre business owner.
Right.
And then you hit the last thing I'll say before I pass it to my question to you is you hit on something about, which is so important, that phase from 1 to 3 million. There's startups when you start your own, they're mom and pops, right?
Yeah.
You're in the business, you're the operator, you're making a couple $100,000 a year, hopefully profit, if not gross revenue. Then you cross that 7-figure mark and you're doing $1 million+ a year as a business. You now have the challenge of competing with the companies that have tons of resources and teams, and you don't.
Right.
And that chasm, that spot is where most businesses fail, which is why 4% of all franchises ever actually open 100 physical locations.
Yeah.
And so knowing those things, what do you advise as you're going through the development process? Because I love that you said you turn down more than you accept. So you are, like me, probably pushing people out the door to see what comes through. What are you telling them, or how are you shaping that, knowing that they're going to hit these challenges and you're here to support them, but they're still going to have their risk and challenges? Like, how are you identifying and finding, because you said you may take someone who has no experience, and I do as well, but there's always that risk.
Yep. So I'm typically looking at how successful have they been in either the jobs or the other businesses and the things that they've done in the past. Have they excelled in those roles? Have they been in those roles for an extended period of time? And really taking that as, okay, well, if you've been good at this job for the last 5 years and you've gone from associate to director to VP, and now it's like, okay, you go to executive VP or you wait another 10 years and go to a C-suite, like that person has had a good amount of success persevering through obviously some tough times. We've also brought in owners who have exited companies before or have other businesses that kind of work in tandem.
What about the young adult 24 fresh out of college, worked for someone for a year and a half and says, I got to try this thing?
We are looking at grit. Are they going to be able to grind and give up no matter what? And a lot of that has to do with just like their personality and who they are as like a human. We've signed up, I think, 5 franchisees that were under 30, 5 or 6. And a couple of them are our best franchisees in the system because they have a ton to prove. They're ready to get out there and grind. The other thing that we say is like the franchisee who needs to replace their income year one is not our franchisee. We're looking for franchisees that want to scale to 3, 4, 5, 6, 20 trucks. And so the amount of capital necessary in order to continually reinvest in the business, we basically require they have that or something similar up front. And we won't get them set up with an SBA loan unless they can pay for the business on their own themselves. They can hang on to their own capital, but like we're not bringing in someone who has $50,000 liquid and $300,000 net worth, and they're going to spend $300,000 on the business. Like it's just that person's going to be in over their skis.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm on the other side of that.
Are you?
I am.
Okay. I mean, there are definitely two sides.
And I'll be honest, I think this is an interesting point. You are right that it is way riskier for the person that only has $300,000 net worth, who's going to take a loan for $300,000 and has no resources. But I was that guy when I started my first company. Yeah. And I look at it where a hungry dog hunts best.
Yeah.
And so if you gave me somebody with the grit and the personality traits, my very first franchisee at Everbowl was the first kid I ever hired when he was 18 years old. Ben. Yeah. He had no money, so I lent him the money to buy the first franchise.
Yeah.
Because I knew that he was going to work his ass off. He had no money, no resource. He had everything to prove. He was going to work 23 and a half hours a day if necessary because he had to. Where some of my other friends who are multimillionaires, they're not even going to respond to you in an email because they have an assistant to do it. So the chance of them working more than 3 hours tomorrow is slim.
Yeah.
And so my thought process is I prefer the people with the net worth.
Yeah.
Because it's better. They can invest. But I would also say that I am always open to finding the people out there who have yet to figure out how to create wealth, and they just need the formula and the plan.
Yep.
Now again, it's a preference. I mean, most brands are like you.
Yeah.
In that.
And there are exceptions to every rule. But basically the way we're looking at it is they're going to reinvest pretty much every single last bit of their profit, I would say. I mean, there are SBA loan structures now where you could build in a salary year 1, year 2, and we have some of those options as well. But we want, to go back to your question, we want franchise owners to know that they're building an asset that can hopefully eventually run without them. They're going to hire 2 people prior to going to training that will run the truck because we don't want them to do the power washing. We want them out selling and being part of their community.
Is it hard to find someone to do the power washing?
No.
Is it hard to train someone to do power washing?
No. It takes 3 days for us to get someone trained up.
Okay.
And the pool of people that want to work outside that don't have any skills is actually much larger than the pool of people who have an HVAC license and want to work for someone else. And one of the most challenging things with the last brand I worked on is we needed people with 4 or more years of drywall experience in order to be an employee for our franchisees. And there's only so many of those people in a market that want to work for someone else and have those skill sets. Whereas like if someone has a good attitude and hands, candidly, like we can get them trained up in a few days. Yeah. And our process for power washing, like we're standing 20, 30 feet away from a building, we're spraying water and soap on the side of it, and we're rinsing it off. So it's quite an enjoyable and satisfying experience for that kind of blue-collar laborer who just wants to go out and get his hands dirty learning something new. So we have not had an issue finding labor at scale. We're just quick to hire and quick to fire, depending upon that person. So we kind of hire for attitude versus skill. But anyways, yeah, like the people that we're bringing in are sophisticated in the way that they think, in a way that other brands that I've been involved in, it's just a completely different level. And I think a lot of it has to go with the commercial side of the business. If we were just residential, the opportunity would be smaller.
Sure.
But being, a predominantly commercial power washing company, we've been able to target some very sophisticated operators.
So let me ask you, it's not a challenging question, but it's potentially a challenging question. And I've had this conversation with Cody and others. In the, we'll call them the boring legacy businesses, which is what, for some reason, they're called. Because they're not sexy and new.
Sure.
As AI and robotics and technology continues to improve, like now there's, I, for fun, was about to start a landscaping business years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
I really first got into entrepreneurship, and I was talking with my landscaper, and he hadn't scaled his business. I'm like, I can do this thing. It didn't work, but like I'm an investor in this piece of technology that automatically cuts grass now.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying I'm not pointing to power washing. Sure. I'm pointing to the entire industry of those legacy service-based businesses. Do you see that this is does this still have 20 years of legs, 30 years of legs, or is it going to eventually turn into more of a technology robotics play?
So it's funny you ask that, because we actually just started using drones to clean buildings. So we can hit 5 stories from the ground. We don't have to rent a lift. But if it goes above 5 stories, we are partnered with a drone company, and we can send drones out.
Oh, very cool.
And so we'll, like the City Hall job that we did in New Orleans, we used a drone, and we can send those anywhere to our franchisees. And these are $47,000 drones, and you need your own airline pilot that has like FAA regulations and stuff like that.
Today.
Yeah, today. So I don't see it as something that will get replaced.
Not power washing in general, specific. I'm saying in general, though, like all of these, like, carpet cleaning or drywall, right? Is the Tesla robot, going to be able to patch walls for you, because I saw this, I don't know if it was a spoof or a real video, but it was on Instagram, and it was this construction company that was using robots, and it was like them next to a person, and it was like, they don't take days off.
Yeah.
They don't need training.
Yep. So what's funny is, the first company that enters a market and essentially sophisticates the industry is usually the one that sets the standards for other companies that come first.
Yep.
And part of the reason why I was so excited about power washing in general versus like roofing or HVAC or these other businesses that I looked at is like there's still a lack of like overall sophistication at scale. It's not a thing where private equity started coming in and rolling up a ton of power. Like they've done that in electrical, they've done that in HVAC, like they've started to do that in roofing as well. So
they will eventually with power washing.
They will eventually,
and you'll have sold to them.
And we will. No, so we will have already become the 800-pound gorilla. And the best way I can explain this is to say like 1-800-GOT-JUNK. 1-800-GOT-JUNK came in the early 2000s to an industry which at the time was just a guy that picked up junk and put it in the back of his truck. They essentially paved the way for College Hunks, hauling junk, Junk King, Junk Luggers, J-Dog Junk. But if you take all of those brands and you combine them in size, 1-800-GOT-JUNK is bigger than all of them combined. And while Brian Scudamore has an amazing business, I don't believe that they would have had that same opportunity had they been 5th or 6th to market. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to come in and capture market share, and now they have 3,000 trucks on the road and do $1 billion in system-wide sales.
You're 100% right, because if I started Everbull today, I couldn't do what I did.
Right.
Timing is a element of success.
Yep.
It's not just being able to do the thing. It's like you have to also understand the when. Like I can go start the greatest Instagram competitor in the world. I'm not stealing market share.
Yeah, correct. So with that said, that comes with responsibilities to set standards within the industry. I'll give you an example. There's different regulations across the country for water reclamation in power washing. However,
that just means what you do with the water after it hits the building.
The dirty water. Where does it go?
Yes.
None of the people who are saying that you need to reclaim the water tell you how you should reclaim the water.
Sure.
And there's no power washing company that's like, this is the standard. So over the last 4 months, we built, based on all of the knowledge that we have, a water reclaim system that we now can put in franchisees' trucks. And it allows them to sufficiently and effectively reclaim water in the best way possible. But we had to create that because it currently doesn't exist.
Yep.
So from an innovation standpoint, when you're first in to an industry, like as we're the first brand that has any national, we're the first coast-to-coast power washing company, then you basically set the standards. So if robots were going to be able to power wash, we would likely be the ones to test it, figure out if it works, give that as another tool to our franchisees, and we will have captured so much market share that, great, now we've got robots that we can hire as employees, which means we can be more efficient.
Right. I was trying to preface, the question wasn't, I know for you.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just in general. If I'm sitting at home listening, I'm like, I'm going to find a power washing business to buy. My question is just categorically that as we are, the boring businesses are boring because they've been around forever.
Yeah.
And it's traditional things. It's not innovation and new, right?
Right.
You're not buying a franchise of electric charging stations.
Right.
That's not considered a boring business. That's a new one. A gas station might be a boring business.
Sure.
If I had to tell you, do I believe in 50 years gas stations that are on every street corner are going to still be there? I think that over the course of 50 years, as we move towards more electric and other technologies and self-driving cars and all the stuff that the world's going to,
right.
If I had to place a bet, I would tell you there are less gas stations in America in 50 years, gas-powered gas stations, than today. Doesn't mean it's the next 50 years I'm not going to make money. I was just saying that when I think about boring businesses and I think about how fast AI and technology is coming and the ability for, which is the scary thing if I'm a Gen Z or younger, right? Because you could almost do anything in our generation.
Yeah.
Like I could start a landscaping business in my neighborhood 15 years ago and build it into a nice quality life if I just want it for me, or turn it into a national chain like what you did with Rolling Suds. Those were options.
Yep.
But as technology and AI and the big guys get more sophisticated, set the standard, all the things like if you develop the reclamation product as well as a robotics solution, it may turn into, yes, nobody can compete with Rolling Suds because you are the thing.
Right.
I can't enter the market now.
Right.
I have no way. It's like I can't duplicate McDonald's real estate strategy today.
Right.
It's not duplicatable. I can't duplicate Starbucks cannibalization strategy because centers don't let two coffee shops in.
Right.
So you are precluded. So you can build a nice, fun coffee brand like Dutch Brothers and these other ones that are great businesses. They don't compare in size. You can't go compete with Amazon the way Amazon is. They are so big and technology has allowed them to take such a large leap. My question is more just as I think about franchising, as I think about boring businesses, as I think about acquisition of existing businesses, do you see AI technology changing the paradigm to where it's probably, this is more of a push to why I think you should go with a franchise like Rolling Suds as opposed to buying my small little local Suds business, because I do believe that you are going to be seeing more drones. You are going to see less human blue collar labor doing these tasks because it's not, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, but the repeatable, very easy to train, no sophistication of skills, just takes a human and time right now. As you said, 2 hands and a hose. Well, if a drone can do it or a robot can do it and you could be more efficient and your franchisees can make more money, great for Rolling Suds.
Yeah.
How do I compete with that in 10 years?
Right.
As an up-and-comer. So is it not better to get in now with the big gorillas, the 1-800-GOT-JUNKS, and say, okay, I'm planting my flag so I can grow inside of this ecosystem, knowing that the technology curve and that pendulum is, we're hitting the hockey stick.
Yeah. Oh, totally. 100%.
And so you have to be doing those things. Like I look at what we're doing at Everbowl with how we manufacture and import product and how we move it and how we're building stores and the systems that we're internally developing, knowing that AI and robotics are coming to our industry.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just a bigger question, and I was just trying to get your take on AI and technology hitting these industries. And to the individual who is working at home, looking at, do I franchise? Do I start my own? Do I go acquire? I think now, you said why franchising having its moment. I think the chance for entrepreneurship at a real level is now.
Yeah.
Because the haves and have-nots are growing. You can see it in the income disparity, right? And as technology increases, we need less people to do the same things we needed more humans to do, so there's less available jobs. Therefore, there will be less available opportunities to start companies.
Yeah. It's another reason. Yes, and I agree with you. And it's another reason why it's significantly less risk to get in with a fast-growing brand because, again, you get to kind of ride the upside of the growth of the brand versus like, all right, I'm going to go on my own. Yeah, I don't have to pay a royalty. Yeah, I don't have to pay an upfront fee. But now I'm going to figure out how to do all this stuff when we're going like this.
Yep.
And that person who has a local business might be going, slowly and up and to the right.
You say don't pay a royalty. You're paying a royalty whether you start your own company or not. It's just a question of what are you paying it to?
Right. Well, it's time or money that you're using from a leverage standpoint.
And it's time and money when you start your own, and it's time and money with because royalty seems to be the same. Well, how much is the royalty? That should never be the question.
I agree.
The question should be, what do I receive for the money I'm going to pay you? And is it worth more than what I'm paying you?
Yeah.
If I pay you $100,000 a year in royalty and you give me $500,000 a year in value, and that value allows me to grow my business and make more money, it's cheap.
Totally
If
agree.
I give you $100,000 and you give me $60,000 of value, and you're not helping me in those areas, it's expensive.
Yep.
So I always say this, well, how much? My daughter always says, well, how much is it? I'm like, that's not the right question.
Right.
What are you getting?
Right.
Because if I say, give me $1 million right now, you're gonna say, no way. I'm like, well, what if I give you $5 million right back? You'll give it to me.
Yeah.
And if I say, give me $10 right, you can give me $1 million or $10, and there's a different outcome. The $10 I give you $0, the $1 million I give you $5 million, you're gonna give me $1 million.
For sure.
So it's just a value proposition of what do you get?
Yep.
And the royalty is there, so you as a brand new business owner who buys a Rolling Suds or an Everbull or whatever, or 1-800-GOT-JUNK or whatever you buy, you're having a team of people. You have systems and process that are coming with it. You have a community like you mentioned, and now you are receiving for only a small percentage of your sales an entire support team that should be helping you with marketing, real estate, logistics, supply chain, finance, accounting, hiring, firing, legal, HR, and all of the other elements.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm on a soapbox, but
yeah,
that's my.
No, you're preaching to the choir. I see the value there, and I hope that people who are considering either buying a business, starting one from scratch, or buying a franchise can also see the value, because you're just paying for the systems and the processes and the team in order to get to scale faster. And so it's just a matter of what's the value of your time.
And I'll end my soapbox out on that by saying, I believe that I'm not trying to convince people not to start their own, because I'm the guy who did, right? Yeah. And I'll tell you, I would buy a franchise. If there was an Everbull available to me at that time, I probably would have just bought a franchise.
Yeah.
There wasn't. So if you have an idea, or you have a feeling that you can differentiate yourself from a market and there is no existing community to get into, that you believe in the leadership, you believe in the direction, and you're proud to be a part of that, you should definitely start your own.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, I wouldn't shy away, because you're still an entrepreneur. You still have all the benefits of entrepreneurship. So you're paying whatever a small percentage of a royalty. You're going to pay that to somebody anyway. You can hire your own team and pay more, right? Because if I hire all of the people for when I owned and operated, 28 Everbulls, my team was less sophisticated than my support team is now to help those same stores.
Right.
For me to afford that would have been a higher royalty, air quote, percentage than what I get to pay if I just paid my corporate team today the royalty. So it's a value proposition. And so I would say I push people to say, if you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to be an entrepreneur and you love an industry and you want to make money, franchising is great.
Yeah.
If you want to be an entrepreneur and you have an idea that you can't find and you can't duplicate, or there's no available opportunities, go start your own.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So I know we've been rapping forever. Rolling Suds is an awesome brand.
Thank you.
I first want to say congratulations, and I'm proud of you as knowing what it takes, and I'm excited to continue to watch you grow.
Thank you.
Watch how you guys continue to innovate in this space.
Thank you.
It's an industry that, like you said, it falls into that boring category, but that's where money's made.
Right.
You make more money with boring businesses than you do with the exciting ones.
Yeah.
Go look at the stock market, right?
Yeah.
Less volatile.
Yeah.
More ability to build and compound wealth. In golf they say drive for show, putt for dough.
Yeah.
In business it's the same thing. Don't follow the exciting trends, right?
Right.
Because there's a very high failure rate. But
yep.
You have a proven business model. And so I would suggest anyone who is looking for a boring business or a way to make money, you should definitely be exploring Rolling Suds, because it's coming onto the scene extremely fast. And I have a feeling you are going to be the big gorilla, the 800-pound gorilla in that space, because you are already focusing on the other things, which is, like you said, water reclamation, which is going to be a thing and an issue in a lot of regions. California is going to make you do it.
Yep.
So if you didn't solve that ahead of time, you may go, uh-oh, what do we do? Like, we're dealing with single-use plastics as an example, right?
Right.
Our bowls are in these clear plastic containers so you can see the product. I don't want plastic. I would love an alternative. There isn't one.
Right.
Well, we're now being forbidden from using them in certain locations, and I have to solve a problem.
Right.
And that's not as challenging as water reclamation. Right. I can use paper, or I can use disposable. But the point of it is, you guys are thinking about the right things to scale and grow. And that's where you, as a potential franchisee or customer, you want to go with the brands that are thinking about tomorrow, today. And that's what I think is separating you. And it's been an awesome experience to kind of learn and dive in as we was preparing for today and getting to know you, to see your growth, your trajectory, because you should take a moment and be proud. It's an awesome accomplishment, and I think you have a really, really cool brand.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
So we got to jump into some rapid fire.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so you're going to stare into camera one.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you three 3 questions.
Okay.
30-second-ish answer, whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
What is the single most important skill a franchisee needs to have?
The ability to follow a system and have a good attitude despite the ups and downs.
In your experience, what is the difference between the brands that do make it to 100 locations and the ones that don't?
Their ability to innovate, provide support to franchisees, and put the franchisee first.
If you had to narrow down to one trait that a franchisee of yours must have, what would it be?
The ability to go out in their community and get 100 no's before they get one yes.
And finally, I said 3, but I'm going to ask you a 4th one. If you had to start over today and you were already in business, meaning Rolling Suds was where it is today, would you be a franchisee of Rolling Suds?
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% be a franchisee of Rolling Suds.
And I would too, and maybe I will become one.
There we go.
We should talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I build portfolios of companies, and like you said it best, it's something that can be scaled. And why not join early?
Yeah.
But honestly, this was awesome.
Thank you so much.
I think there was so much to pull out, and we could keep going forever. It's just I'm getting yelled at that we're hitting time. But in addition, where should, outside of the franchising, I think that you are looking at franchisor role in the right way, right? We are the generation that is changing it because there is a moment. Mm-hmm. There's the legacy style, and then there's the inexperienced style, and there's us in the middle, and we're all vying. And I think that whether it's Everbowl and Rolling Suds or it's somebody else, some of us are going to be the next big 800-pound gorillas. Where can people learn more about your leadership style, how you're approaching it? Because I think that that's very important as someone evaluates franchise, not just the business. Like, how can they get more involved with you?
Totally agree. So I put out content every single day, multiple videos, multiple written stuff across multiple platforms. So I'm probably most active on Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. So my handle on Twitter is Aaron Harper, CEO. And I just put out stuff about business ownership, franchising in general. What is a franchise? What is not a franchise? What is the royalty pay for? Like, very simple stuff to you and me, but a lot of people don't know that. I would say only a fraction of the general public knows what a franchise is and isn't. So I try to put out content regularly about educating people about franchise ownership. And then if they Google Aaron Harper Rolling Suds on LinkedIn, I'll be the first one that comes up. My handle on Instagram is Aaron T. Harper.
What does T stand for?
Timothy. Yeah. So we put out at least 1 or 2 videos a day on that, just educating people about entrepreneurship, franchising, business, try to provide some unique content that isn't out there currently. And my franchisees get to hear from me every single day, multiple times a day by doing that. So it's kind of cool.
Well, there you guys go. If you want to learn more, I mean, this is a voice you need to be listening to. He is building something really unique. It's the first of what I believe will be multiple brands in the portfolio.
Absolutely.
And products, it sounds like, with some of the things that you're innovating on. And it's been an honor and privilege. And I want to thank you again for coming in and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the community. And for those watching, there's a lot of success traits that he just laid out. You heard a lot about emulation of others that he has seen success with. You heard a lot about the grit and tenacity. You heard a lot about systems and process. You heard a lot about checklists. And as you listen through this, there's some things that you can implement today, whether or not you're going to be a franchisee, an entrepreneur, just in your life. Success leaves clues. It's a formula. He's obviously got a proven one to help him win in all areas. And my favorite thing he said today was why he left being the agent, because success is not just wealth, right? It's everything you do in life. If you're not successful at all of it, you're not successful. So don't just chase dollars, chase health, chase relationships, chase wealth, and don't chase, attract. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone. First, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And if you guys haven't heard about my new book, Relationship Bank Account, click the link in the show notes or search the title on Amazon. This book is packed with all my secrets to success in both relationships and life. Make sure to pick up a copy, and if the book helps you on your journey, let us know by leaving a review. I appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you on the next one.